I've tried a lot of different aquarium lights, but when it comes to finding a good light that's cheap, it's always seemed like you had to compromise somewhere. So when I stumbled upon the Seaoura SR-616 light, I was skeptical as it's cheap and it makes some bold claims about its performance, but it does have over 3,300 reviews averaging 4.4 stars out of 5. So after looking at a few other products, I did decide to give it a try. Now just to be clear, this video isn't sponsored in any way. I bought all of these lights with my own money and everything I say about them is relative to their specific entry level price point in the market. But if you want more details like more data, tips and tricks and sources to back up what I'm saying in this video, I have a fully sourced blog post that I link in the description. So getting back to the Seaoura SR-616, and I ended up liking it so much that I now use it on this tank, this tank, this tank, this tank, this tank, this tank, and this tank. Whether you're growing easy beginner plants like Anubias or Java Fern or pushing its limits with more demanding species, the Seaoura SR-616 seems to get the job done without costing as much as some of the more bigger named alternatives. So let's get into the bulk of the video. Now you can grow some entry level aquatic plants under cheap white only lights because white light covers all visible spectrum wavelengths at the same intensity. But here's the catch, because those lights often fall short when it comes to supporting the wavelengths that help plants thrive and offer healthy plant growth. This means you can end up with easily avoidable deficiencies in your plants and they may look stunted, pale or just not grow as well as they could. But thankfully that's where full spectrum lighting comes in to save the day. Even having a few dedicated LEDs for blue, green and red light can make a huge difference, especially for more demanding plant species. This gives your plants the extra boost that they need to grow healthy and thrive in your tank, whether you're sticking with beginner friendly species or trying something a little more advanced. Here's a table from my blog post that breaks down the wavelengths and different colours and how they benefit aquatic plants. Blue, green and red light tend to offer the more significant benefits, helping plants photosynthesize more effectively, grow stronger and truly thrive in an aquarium. So in my opinion, spending a little extra on a budget-friendly full spectrum light like the Seaoura SR-616 compared to a white only light is definitely worth it. So moving on to customization, and the light does offer some limited options, but it's never going to be anything near the levels of the more expensive lights, but personally I'm totally fine with that because it does meet my needs. The easy to use control unit lets you fine tune the white and blue light intensity in increments of 10% per button press. So if you want to tweak the white light, just tap the W button until you are happy, and if you need to adjust the blue light, just hit the B button. But if you need quick adjustments, then you can hold down the W or B button to quickly jump between 0% light intensity and 100% light intensity. On top of that, it also comes with built-in timer settings for 6, 10 and 12 hour photo periods, and as much as I wish it had an 8 hour instead of a 10 hour, it's really not that much of an issue for my setups. Now here's a quick tip, and you should set your light intensity with the W and B buttons before you activate the timer, as it will lock your current light intensity in for the time slot. So moving on, and we get to the power to light output ratio, but before I get into this I just want to quickly say that I have no specialist equipment like a par meter or anything like that to independently verify the output, so I am just relying on the manufacturer's listed claims. On paper, the Seaoura SR-616 isn't just cheap to buy, it's also cheap to run, so you don't have to worry about it spiking up your electricity bills over the coming months. This table is pulled from my blog post and it breaks down the PAR, LED count and lumen rating for the different sizes of lights in the range based on the manufacturer's specs. So if these numbers are accurate, this light averages 68 lumens and 118 PAR per watt. To put that into perspective, it absolutely crushes a more expensive light like the Nicru C10, which averages just 49 lumens and 49 per watt. But the light's efficiency doesn't just save power, it also runs cool to prevent any issues with overheating. I can comfortably place my hand on the light after a full 6 hour photo period without issue or having to worry about it affecting my tank's water temperature. So moving on to plant growth under the Seaoura SR-616, and here's a list on the screen of all the plants that I've successfully grown under this light under my various aquariums that use it. Now I am currently in the process of rescaping some tanks and cycling a few new ones, but here's what I can show you, and this is one of my oldest tanks, my Wallstad method cherry shrimp tank, and it currently contains these plants. It has Rotala rotundifolia, Bacopa caroliniana, Eliocharis parvula, Christmas moss, duckweed and water lettuce. Now many plant nurseries recommend moderate to high light for Rotala rotundifolia, but this is specific to bringing out its pink hues. As you can see in my 40-gallon tank that uses a far more expensive Hyga 957, the Rotala rotundifolia does have that pink tint on its leaves. So it's worth noting that in this tank lit by my Seaoura light, the Rotala stays green, but this is expected due to the lighting intensity and the price differences between those two lights, and I'm more than happy with this. As you've seen through my monthly fish room updates, the plants in here still thrive. They're literally just a different colour and they do their job. Now moving down to the carpet in this tank, and we get to the Christmas moss, which is another plant that's often labelled as requiring moderate light. Christmas moss can definitely struggle under low intensity lights, but as you can see, it's absolutely thriving in this tank running this Seaoura light. And moving on, we get to my pearlweed jungle tank, and I have recently trimmed this back a lot, so it does look a little battered, but the plant is regrown back in. Most plant nurseries list pearlweed as an advanced plant requiring moderate to high lighting, but as you can see, the pearlweed in this tank is absolutely thriving and it's literally taken over. Then we get to my 10-day-old Wallstad method Medaka tank, which contains Hygrophila polysperma, Hygrophila polysperma rosanavig, Echinodorus tropica, Henelanthium telanum green, duckweed and water lettuce. Unfortunately, I did receive this Hygrophila polysperma rosanavig, also known as Hygrophila polysperma sunset, in very poor condition, and I really didn't think the plant would make it, but as you can see, it is starting to photosynthesize under the light and it looks like it's turning its life around. This specific plant is also sometimes listed as requiring high light, but this light is enough in this tank that I'm showing right now, as well as my slightly older Wallstad guppy tank that I'm still cycling, but it is a little more difficult to see it in the back of this one. So as you can see, this light can support healthy plant growth in a wide range of plants that similar lights at this price point may struggle with, so I'm very happy with its performance in my fish room. Moving on, and we get to the build quality of the light, and this is actually surprisingly solid for its price point, but there are some newer lights being released at this price point with a very similar build quality. Like I mentioned back at the start, it is important to keep expectations realistic, as it's not fair to compare this light to lights that cost twice or even 3 times its price. You definitely get what you pay for, so I'd recommend being extra careful during tank maintenance to avoid accidentally knocking or damaging the light. That said, I currently have 7 of these lights in my fish room and they've survived a couple of minor bumps without issue, and I've dropped at least 2 of them and they still perform without any problems. So in my experience, I would say that they easily hold up with regular expected wear and tear, but I haven't actually submerged any of them yet, and at this price point I'm not eager to try it. Getting into my final thoughts, and the Seaoura SR-616 aquarium light is a standout choice for anyone looking for a cheap, reliable, feature-packed lighting solution that is for a low-tech planted tank with easy to medium category plants. As I've covered, it offers full spectrum lighting, customizable settings, impressive energy efficiency and great light outputs with minimal heat generation. It supports healthy plant growth across a wide range of different species, and I just plan to keep trying more and more plants under it over the coming months. I honestly do think that this is the perfect light for someone brand new to the planted tank hobby looking to set up their very first tank, but it definitely has its place with more experienced keepers looking for a budget friendly light. In my experience, it's been a solid, cheap investment that in my opinion punches well above its weight in all sorts of aspects, and that's why I run so many of them in my fish room and plan to get more in the future. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I do have a full blog post linked in the description going into a little bit more detail that's also fully sourced if you want to know the sources for some of the things I've said, but that does bring the video to an end, guys. I hope it's been helpful. Thanks for watching and have a good day.